Hollow Bible by Connor de Bruler. Recognize without testing it the evil there in your bed, your chest, your thighs, and forsaken feet, like those on a crucifix. Pier Paolo Pasolini. 1. Last night I had a dream that I worked in a modern office where people got to wear whatever they wanted. The kinds of clothes young rich people wear on Friday nights in bustling downtowns, all beards and beanies and girls in peasant skirts. I made decent money and enjoyed what I did there. I think we wrote marketing copy for computer sales. My boss was kind, my coworkers were kind, everyone was happy. I had done a good job writing a pitch that morning, and my coworkers decided to take me to lunch at an upscale sushi bar. We laughed about mundane things and talked about things to do on our weekends off in the city. After that, I woke up. The storm outside was raging. Dead palm leaves crashed against my motel room window. There was a group of Marines in the suite beside me, taking refuge from the hurricane, drinking and playing music. I sat up in bed and took another Valium and chased it with tequila and tried to remember how good I had it in my dream. 2. I'm going to lay this out as best I can, and you can decide for yourself what it is I'm guilty of. My name is Basil Shaver. I get my name from my grandfather. I don't know how old I am. I'm guessing early 30s. It's hard to tell when you've been beaten up over the years as many times as I have. I've done a lot of hard drugs too, and I still booze and smoke, which doesn't help me either. Maybe late 20s, who knows? I know where I come from. Brazil, Indiana. I don't know if I was born there because I don't have a birth certificate. But I remember living there for a while when I was real little. I lived with my mother and a distant uncle. There's only one famous person I can think of that also came out of Brazil, and that was Jimmy Hoffa. It's fitting that I come from the same place as him. Everyone from Brazil disappears eventually. My grandfather was black. My grandmother was white. They never got married. The state still had laws against it until about 1948. At least that's why my uncle told me. My grandfather worked at a full-service gas station on the Clay County line. He was working late in the evening when a rowdy group of youngsters drove up with an international pickup and told him to fill up the tank. He filled it up and they started yelling at him, saying they only needed $1's worth. He called them liars and got the owner involved. The owner came out with his double-barrel buckshot, which persuaded them to pay up. It was a fatal mistake. Things were quiet for another week or so. That's how my uncle told it. It was late on a Wednesday night in August, when 3 trucks surrounded the little station. It was a posse of Klan members who drove down from Kokomo just to see my grandfather. They killed the owner first. He was found between the front door and the gas pumps, lying in the dust, with multiple exit wounds to his chest, and the back from 4 different pistol calibers. My grandfather wasn't heard from again, and his body was never found. That was the beginning of the end for my lineage. We've been losing ever since. I'm only a quarter black. Most people think I'm Italian or Turkish, and by people, I mean lowlives and Johns. I've heard a lot of random theories too. Cherokee, Jewish, Armenian. My mother was 15 when I was born. My father was probably in his 40s. I never met him. We lived for a few years in Brazil, and after that, we moved to Indianapolis. It was in that cramped apartment on Musket Street where my mother first tried to drown me in the bathtub. My uncle wasn't around to placate her anymore, and I was afraid to go home every day after school. She had a couple of different boyfriends. One of them was a pretty nice guy, but he didn't stick around long. It was the really bad guy who won out. He moved in and pushed me aside. They did things together like extinguishing cigarette butts on my skin. About a year later, I was abandoned at the Circle Center downtown. I wasn't a teenager yet, but I wasn't a child either. It was night, and the storefronts were shutting down. I stared through the tall glass windows at the cold neon glare of the city. After wandering around looking for them, a security guard caught me. He must have thought I was older, because he didn't take me to an office and try to contact my parents. Instead, he escorted me to the back entrance and kicked me off the premises. I just zipped up my coat and wandered down the street. I've been on the run ever since. I stole from restaurants and unattended purses in the city park for about a week. I practically lived in the basement of a comic book store, pulling 50-cent issues of The Mask and Batman No Man's Land from their plastic sleeves to read in secret until the clerk found me down there and kicked me out. I wasn't on my own for long.